The Lives of the Saints by the Reverend Alban Butler, taken from the 4th edition, published in 1954. December 6th, St. Nicholas, Archbishop of Myra. The great veneration with which the saint has been honored, both in the Greek and Latin churches for many ages, and the great number of altars and churches which have been everywhere erected in his memory, are proofs of his extraordinary sanctity, and of the glory which he enjoys with God. The Emperor Justinian built a church in his honor at Constantinople in the quarter called Blachernae about the year 430, and he was a titular saint of 4 churches in Constantinople. All accounts agree that he was a native of Patara in Lycia. We are told that in his infancy he observed the fasts of Wednesdays and Fridays, refusing to suck the breast on those days. Happy are they who, from their infancy and innocent age, are inured to the exercises of devotion, penance, and perfect obedience. St. Nicholas increased his fervor in these and all other virtues with his years, especially when he had devoted himself to a religious life in the monastery of Holy Sion, near Myra, of which house he was made abbot by the archbishop, its founder. Charity in comforting and relieving the distressed seemed his characteristical virtue. Amongst many other instances, it is related that when 3 young virgins were exposed through distress to the dangers of falling into vicious courses, he, for 3 successive nights, conveyed to them through the window a competent sum of money for a fortune for one of them, so that they were all portioned and afterwards happily married. Lycia was a large ancient province of Asia, in which St. Paul had planted the faith. Myra, the capital, 3 miles from Patara and from the sea, was an archiepiscopal see, founded by St. Nicander, of so great dignity that in later ages 36 suffragan bishoprics were subject to it. This metropolitan church falling vacant, the holy abbot Nicholas was chosen archbishop, and in that exalted station became famous by his extraordinary piety and zeal, and an incredible number of stupendous miracles. The Greek histories of his life agree that he suffered imprisonment for the faith, and made a glorious confession in the latter part of the persecution raised by Diocletian, and that he was present at the great council of Nice, and there condemned Arianism. The silence of other authors make many justly suspect these circumstances. The history of the translation of his relics places his death in 342. He died at Myra, and was buried in his own cathedral. The relics of St. Nicholas were kept with great honor at Myra, till they were translated into Italy. Certain merchants of Bari, a seaport in the kingdom of Naples, situated in the Adriatic Gulf, sailed in 3 ships to the coast of Lycia, and watching an opportunity when no Mohammedans were near the place, went to the church in which the relics of St. Nicholas were kept, which stood in a desert place 3 miles from the sea, and was guarded by a small community of monks. They broke open the marble coffin in which the sacred bones lay, and carried them off to their ships. The inhabitants, upon the alarm given, pursued them to the shore with horrible outcries, but the Europeans were not got safe on board. They landed at Bari on the 9th of May, 1087, and the sacred treasure was deposited by the archbishop in the church of St. Stephen. On the first day, 30 persons were cured of various distempers, imploring the intercession of St. Nicholas, and from that time the tomb of St. Nicholas of Bari has been famous for pilgrimages. The authentic history of this translation, written by John, at that time Archdeacon of Bari, by order of the archbishop, is extant in Sirius. St. Nicholas is esteemed a patron of children, because he was from his infancy a model of innocence and virtue, and to form that tender age to sincere piety was always his first care and delight. To impress on the minds of children perfect sentiments of devotion, religion, and all virtues, with an earnestness in all duties, is a task often as delicate as it is important. Instructions must be made sensible, and adapted by similes, parables, and examples to the weakness of their capacities. Above all, they are to be enforced by the conduct of those with whom the children converse. They learn their maxims, imbibe their spirit, and are molded upon their example. A child which sees those who are about him love their own ease, and never seek what best pleases their senses, still more, if he observes them to be choleric, peevish, vain, slothful, or impatient, will naturally cherish these passions, and yield up the government of himself to them, instead of learning by tractableness, humility, meekness, and self-denial to subdue and govern them. And so in all other points, precepts, and exhortations lose their force when contradicted by example. And whilst the infant sees everyone study to please himself in everything, in flat opposition to the rules of the gospel, which he hears preached from their mouths, he seems tacitly persuaded that such a conduct is reconcilable with those very maxims which condemn it.